You know a scene, right? Some regular person takes a secret pill or gets struck by lightning and suddenly begins see the future, speak 20 languages, and suddenly develop superpowers. Why? Because they finally unlocked their brain's hidden potential. Because because you don't use 90% of your brain.
Let's take a look at things we think we already know.
We've all dreamed about it, right? Just tapping into the huge unused part of our mind and becoming a genius. I mean, the idea that we're all walking around with this dormant superpower just waiting to be switched on is, well, it's pretty awesome. It's a fantastic story. It sounds so completely, utterly wrong. Where if I told you there's actually nothing to unlock. Hate to be the one to burst your bubble, but yeah, right now, as you're listening to me, this is super you. Here. There's no secret 90%. Sorry. It has been in so many movies and TV series. That's become one of those things that just feels true. You know, it feels like it has to be based on something real. Nope. It's a myth. A really stubborn lie. That's actually its official diagnosis from researchers. It's a myth that refuses to die. And if it were true, you wouldn't unlock hidden genius. You'd need medical intervention. This idea has been kicking around for more than 100 years, which is kind of impressive for something so completely incorrect. So, where in the world did this giant misunderstanding come from? The story of the 10% myth isn't some grand conspiracy. It's more like a century-long game of telephone, filled with miscues, wild oversimplifications, and honestly, just some bad luck. It's a real comedy of scientific errors. So, how did this whole mess get started? It began back around 1907 with a philosopher, William James. He wrote that we only use a fraction of our mental resources. But he was talking about motivation, about potential, not literal brain matter. Then somehow Albert Einstein's name got attached to the idea, probably a misquote, which gave the nerve this unstoppable, super credible momentum. And the final nail in the coffin? A real biological fact. See, in our brains, for every one neuron, there are about 10 other cells called glial cells. Some people heard about that 10-to-1 ratio, and yeah, you can see where they went with that. They didn't realize that glial cells are the brain's essential support crew. They're the janitors, the chefs, bodyguards for the neurons. They're not just useless filler. Okay, so let's get into the actual science here. Because when you look at the cold, hard evidence, the 10% myth doesn't just look a little shaky. It completely falls apart. So, here's the bottom line. The myth claims that 90% of your brain is doing nothing. In reality, you are crazy much using all of your brain all of the time. Right now, your brain is firing on all cylinders, even when you're asleep. Different areas just tag each other in and out depending on what you're doing. And look, the scientific case against this is a total slam dunk. Brain imaging. You can literally watch your brain work with things like fMRI and PET scans. And guess what? There are now dark, silent areas. You see activity lighting up all over the place. And finally, this is the big one, brain damage. If the myth were true, you could damage huge chunks of your brain and be totally fine. But we all know that's not the case. In reality, even a tiny bit of damage almost always has completely devastating effects. So, this isn't just a quirky bit of piece of trivia that's wrong. It actually is a clinical diagnosis. The 10% idea is a classic textbook case of what scientists call a neuromyth. A whole collection of popular but totally false ideas in our brains work. A misunderstanding of William James, a misquoting of Albert Einstein, and a complete misreading of cellular anatomy. In fact, they wrote this definition with the 10% myth specifically in mind. It is the ultimate poster child. Thinking you only use 10% of your brain is like noticing one app is open on your phone and deciding that therefore the rest of the apps don't exist, when all along they're running in the background. That's not an insight. That's sloppy thinking. So, with all this evidence, you would think this myth would be dead and Derek. Yeah, not so fast. What's truly wild is how sticky this idea is. A recent study found that over a third of the general public, and get this, a third of educators, still believe it. But here's the real kicker. Even among people with high exposure to neuroscience, 14% still believe it. It just goes to show how hard it is to kill a bad idea once it gets popular. What dark sorcery keeps raising this myth from the dead? Well, when things get stuck in the collective imagination, they get stuck pretty deep. And when they seem to have evidence backing them, they get drilled down even deeper. Like when early scientists noticed that once in a while, brain injuries didn't always break everything. Our brain areas sometimes took over for the damaged parts. How could they pick up the slack if they already had a full-time job? We must have a lot of untapped potential in our brains. Once his idea feels that empowering, accuracy may be seen as optional. That's how bad science becomes an undead, immoral, truth-sucking vampire. So what's the harm in a stray idea of vampire roaming the landscape? Well, this myth isn't harmless. It tells you your potential is locked away, waiting for the right trick, the right guru, the right gizmo, the right substance. Reality is less dramatic and much less of a tease. So let's just reframe this whole thing. This fantasy of unlocking your brain. It's all built on a false premise. The idea that your brain is lazy, that it's holding on you, the science is crystal clear on this one. It's not. You're already using 100% of your brain. Every single connection, every neuron, every little region is part of the amazing machine that makes you, well, you. The goal isn't to find some magic switch to turn on the other 90%. Thirdly, the real and more interesting question isn't how you can use more of your brain. It's what are you going to do? What are you going to do with the 100% you already got? Thanks for joining me. Come back soon and we'll look at some more ideas that get stuck in your head like raccoons in the attic.